Hello, digital photography students. This is Brenda, and I'm coming at you live 2020 from the confines of my home during this fun coronavirus lockdown. I have a few PowerPoints for this week, some extra stuff about printing and fun things that you can do with your digital photos, and some more tips and tricks coming out of our small Kelby book. And I also wanted to remind you to check that email I sent about potentially switching out of this class and into the in-person in fall, if that works for your personal situation. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. All right, let's do this. So, printing good lab quality prints from home. First thing is you have to start with a decent printer. And fortunately, most of them that are out there now, even at low price points, are quite good. Epson, Canon, HP, all names that you can readily find locally in stores that are good. The trick to getting quality from them is to use the appropriate paper and inks for that brand. So using real Epson inks and Epson paper, real Canon inks and Canon paper. So there's lots of different papers out there that you can buy, and some have like a velvety fine art paper that gives your prints more of an artsy feel. This works really well for soft, like nature-like pictures, landscapes, flowers, birds. Maybe a portrait or some hardscape like architecture, a city, a real detailed landscape shot. You might want to go with a premium photo luster paper that has vivid colors and lots of detail. The different papers that you can purchase also have custom color profiles, and if you go to that paper's website, you can find it, and then you can load that into your print dialog and have your printer and your computer understand that this is the specific paper that's in it right now, and this is how bright it is, how thick it is, how much it absorbs ink, how reflective, and it will give you the best quality print for that paper. I just wanted to pop over to here. Photo paper, just an example. I went to Office Max and I pulled up photo paper. So I want to show you that HP clearly has their own, Office Depot has their own kind of generic name, and I have found success with it, and I have also had disasters with it because the ink of my Canon printer would react differently on top of it and not soak in the way I was expecting. So I got a lot of smears and smudges. So I tended to only buy the paper specifically for my printer. My Epson, which I love, love, love my Epson, and I have a good Canon now. I don't have my Epson anymore, but always would go back to that. But if you click on one, so I'm just going to pull up the Ultra Premium Presentation paper. Let's do a photo paper. Ultra Premium Photo Glossy or Photo Luster. I'll just pull up this one, and hopefully, there we go. So it's going to tell you how many sheets you get in this package, and they're going to give you some description about it and product details. So ideal for framing, long-lasting quality prints, ultra smooth, bright white finish. Because it has a 96 brightness rating, your photos are really going to pop and have good contrast. It's a heavy stock paper, 79-pound stock paper. So you can come down here and actually look at all the details as far as the weight, the thickness of the paper, is it acid-free, which if you are trying to archive photos and have them last a long time, that can be really important. Let's see what's under the show more. Okay, so this kind of gives you some examples. And then, like I said, you could go to the Epson website specifically and download an actual color calibration, a color profile that you could put into your print dialog and get the best quality. When you're using a printer that's meant to do higher quality photo printing, you always tell it what kind of paper it's on, and if it's an Epson, it's going to show you all of the Epson paper options and have those built in. So if you're using somebody else's paper, that's when you might have some issues. All right, let's move on in this one. Prints from a lab. So The problem with digital photos that I think we all experience the most right now is that we take them, we maybe look at them on social media or on our screen, but we rarely take the time to make prints. And unlike maybe our parents and grandparents, where we can go through piles and piles of photos and really remember moments, physically sit down on the couch and look at them, we don't do that nearly as often. So I really encourage you to get them off of your computer, off of your digital hard drives, and make things with them. Make prints, make books, whatever. So some online web versions, Shutterfly, Kodak, things like that. I pulled up Shutterfly just as a reminder. If you've never seen it before, they have photo books, cards and stationery, plain old prints, and you can actually get them through Walgreens, CVS, and Target, which is pretty cool. Gift items, plaques, mugs, magnets. You can make canvas prints through here, wedding keepsakes. There's just so much. But the point is, they're not on your computer. They're actually something that you have. Given the way things are going right now, maybe making a puzzle of a family portrait or greeting cards or a book. These are some pretty cool ideas for projects to do now. If you have any seniors in your family that are bummed because everything has changed for them, some cool photo cards for them or something fun might lift their spirits. A blanket, a pillow, all sorts of things. Let's see, Target, Walgreens, Walmart, all of these, they too offer many of the same services as far as metal prints, ornaments, mugs, greeting cards, prints, and you can upload these and pick them up in store, or in many cases have them shipped to you as well. So if you're going to do that, if you're going to take in maybe 20 pictures that you want prints of into Target or Walmart and actually go up to their kiosk, put your card in, to really save time and to make things exactly as you want them, you're going to want to make your edits and color correcting at home. And then you're going to intentionally crop them to 4:6 at 300 dots per inch and save that file as a JPEG. The reason I say this is because the format that your camera records in does not correspond exactly to a 4:6. It might be 6 inches wide, but 3.8 inches tall, for example. So if you don't do the intentional cropping of where those extra, what's going to get lost, the 0.2 that's going to get lost, it may be 0.2 inches off the top of your picture is default for their machine. It may be 0.2 is taken off the bottom. It may be that their machine default takes 0.1 off the top and 0.1 off the bottom to get it to that 4:6 size. Whatever the case, you don't want to let software of their machine determine how your photo gets cropped. So if you do that at home and do your color correcting and everything else, then when you get to Walmart and you go up to their kiosk, you can have all of these 4:6s that are already edited on a jump drive or on your camera card, pop them in and say, print all, I want 4:6s, and you're done. It's a lot faster than doing the cropping and editing on their software also. Okay, color management. We've had a lot of issues with that in the Mac Lab, and with our new printer, things are getting better, but what we still need to do is calibrate. We want our prints to match what you see on screen, and that can be really difficult. So color calibrating your monitor and having it show what the printer is capable of doing or show accurate colors is really important. If you work at a photography studio that's doing like corporate work, or if you're in an ad agency, these people are working in small gray rooms with no windows, gray because it's neutral, it doesn't reflect or color cast anything, and they're probably monitoring, they're probably calibrating at least daily, maybe twice or 3 times a day, to make sure that their monitors are always showing them true color. So I have a link here to a website that I'm going to show you quickly, and I'll bump to that. So this will be also in Blackboard, so you don't have to dig through the PowerPoint to get to it. But some tips before you begin, they all are going to say you should have your monitor on and running at least a half an hour so it can warm up to its normal conditions. And then there's some built-in options in both Windows and Mac that will show you different things like gamma, brightness, and things like that. So it'll show you if the gamma is too low, if this is what you see, it's good. If it's here, it's too high if it's here. So you can do the on-screen options built into both Apple's and PCs. But what you can also do, let's keep scrolling here, there's some calibration tools that you can use online. Now, obviously, what you're seeing online is what your monitor is, the color your monitor is already showing you. So you have to be a little bit concerned and check those out. But the other version that I really want to show you is the hardware, this physical piece that you basically hang over your monitor, and it measures the light and the color coming out of your monitor. Some are more expensive than others. We're looking at $270, $200, $180, but they are specific to your exact monitor, and you can then use the color profile that it gives you and tell the computer or the printer that you're printing to, this is how you need to calibrate. This is what I consider to be red on my monitor. This is how I want it to look, so you need to match this. So back in the PowerPoint, this iDisplay Studio is like the latest version of the Spider or the Color Monkey, I forget which one, but it's down to $149, which is actually very affordable. And if we were on the website and we could rotate through these, you could see how here's the apparatus sitting on top of an iPad and getting a color calibration for their iPad. Here it is hanging over the front edge of a monitor. That's how we would have done it in the classroom. And here it is actually showing an orange screen on a laptop, and then it's projecting like through a projector to get the same color. So it can do a lot more than just your computer monitor. Making money with your photos. Obviously, if you're a photographer and that's your trade, that's one way of making money. But you could also consider selling some of your photos as stock photography. We've looked at iStock photo in various design classes, so you kind of are familiar, I'm sure, with these stock photography sites. So here's iStock. Anything on here that you are going to get, you either pay for or you get maybe a free option, depending if you go to royalty free, you get free ones. But on iStock, typically you pay, as you're seeing here, about $8, $9 up to $11 a credit, or you pay to get a certain amount of images per month. And depending on how much you use this, you know, you'd have to think, like, I really want this photo, it's 3 credits, is it worth $33 to me to have this professional photo legally mine to use in any way I want commercially from this point forward? Yes, it's worth $33. And you decide based on your own needs or your client's needs. If you're the person trying to sell your photos on iStock, just remember that once you do this, you give up all of your rights to whoever buys it. So they can download it and use it in print material, collateral, websites, signage, however they want. You will get paid based on how many people buy your photo. So obviously the key to making money here is have a high quality photo that's in demand and sold a lot. But again, let's say it's a picture of your dog and it's just a fantastic stock photo of a black lab. When somebody buys that, they can use it in any way they want. You may see it on a billboard, you may see it any way and every way. It's no longer yours. You've given away your copyright. All right, a few tips and tricks from our Kelby book that I wanted to point out to you. Those of you with SLRs, when you look through your viewfinder, and on point and shoots, quite often the back LCD screen has these same autofocus points, your point of focus. So the autofocus point is usually set to be the center dot. So when you press down on your shutter halfway. Typically this will light up red, or maybe you have it set so that all of them are lighting up red, meaning kind of everything should be in focus. You know, use an aperture that will keep all of this in focus. Most cameras are going to allow you to move that focus point up or down, left or right. So if the red, or if the center dot is the one that's your default and it's lit up red, but you want it to be this point right here, on your camera, you're going to have to find what controls it. So on the back of a Canon, it's in one spot. On the back of a Nikon, it's on another. But what you do is you push the button, at least on my Canon, I push a button and then I spin a real small dial that's up at the top of my camera, and this one will light up, and then just this one, and then just this one, and then eventually back to the center, and then all of them will light up. Whichever one you stop on is going to be your focal point. So if you are taking let's say that this is not a moving animal, you know it's going to stay there. Obviously using your center point, if that's the one that you're metering and locking in your focus off of, you're going to have to physically move your camera so that this point is up here on the animal's face and lock in the focus, and then physically move your camera back down so that the composition it's in the, you know, the upper third, the rule of thirds here. If you wanted to, you could maybe set this point to be your autofocus, and then you wouldn't have to physically move your camera and recompose quite as much. All right, if you're zooming, if you have a long lens, you really want to use a high shutter speed. So for example, if you're using a 200mm lens, any tiny movement of the lens is going to be very exaggerated. So just a little shift back in your hands at the camera when you're zoomed out 200mm is going to be more of a swing of, you know, several feet left and right. So if it's bright and sunny and your hand holding your camera, a fast shutter speed is going to prevent that blurriness. You're going to get a good shot. However, if you're in the shade, or any time that your shutter speed is going to be lower than 1/250th of a second, you're going to want to use a tripod when you have that big of a zoom lens on. You don't want movement in the camera at all. 1/60th of a second is the shutter speed that if you use the on-camera flash that they sync up together. Anything lower than 1/60th, if you're hand holding, you run the risk of having some blur and some movement being recorded. It's too slow. So if you're not on a tripod, always try to keep your shutter speeds at least 1/60th, if not faster. And if you're using a zoom lens, you're going to have to go even faster, like this 2/50th. All right, hopefully I've harped upon this in both Photoshop and earlier lessons in this class, but especially in photography, always think about getting the best shot in camera that you can. Don't tell yourself, I'm going to fix it later in Photoshop. So think about your composition in camera. You can see in this example, there's maybe the front end of a car right down here, and the next, I don't know, mountain is kind of sticking over. You know, yes, you could crop this in Photoshop or you could edit this out, but why not just shift your viewfinder a smidge to the left and get the perfect picture in camera. Always concentrate on that. All right, concerts and events. How many of you have tried to take good pictures with a camera, not necessarily with your cell phone, at a concert? And how many of you have had poor results? So this happens quite a bit, especially with real cameras. Our cell phones are pretty smart and do a better job. So because a stage is specifically lit, I mean there's lights everywhere, your on-camera flash is going to do nothing. Don't use it. Don't let it pop up or come off. If you're in row 30 and your flash pops up, when that flash fires, it's going to light up everything within the first 10 feet in front of you, which is basically going to be the back of other people's heads or maybe their arms up in the air. There's no way that light can get all the way up to the stage and help you, and the stage itself is already professionally lit, so keep your flash off. The key here is to shoot at a high enough ISO So that's going to digitally amplify the light and make your picture brighter. And you're going to shoot at a high enough ISO so that you can make sure that your shutter speed is at least 1/25th of a second or faster. So if you have a camera that you can set your f-stop, you're going to go down to the lowest number, which is the widest hole, lets in the most light, which is why it's called fast. So an f2.8, and let's say when you choose that, it says your shutter speed is going to be 1/60th. That's too slow. So start bumping your ISO. Go from 200 to 400. If that number doesn't get up to this point, keep rolling it. So quite often I would be at like an 800 or higher ISO before I would get up to this point that you need to be. Whenever you go with high ISO speeds, you also get digital noise or graininess. There's not much you can do about that other than fix it later, which we're actually going to talk about. So, a tip for shooting home interiors. If you ever are trying to sell your house or take a picture of a remodel or something, just some tips from our book. First thing is to turn on all the lights in the room. Ceiling lights, lamps, everything. Even if it's, high noon and very bright in your house. You want to make the room look as big as possible by getting down as low as possible and use a wide angle lens and then shoot corner to corner. If you can picture a rectangle or actually this photo, if we are standing here, pretend that this rectangle is the outline of the room itself and we're looking down, this is a short distance. If we're standing over here, this is a long distance. However, if we stand in any one of the corners, the diagonal is the longest of all. It's showing us the most. So getting down low and going into a corner to corner. If you have bright light outside and it's coming in from the window, your camera can't do both adjustments at the same time or provide both. It can't expose for the inside of the room and expose for the bright details outside. So what's more important here is clearly the house. So we're going to make sure that our exposure gets detail inside the house, and then anything outside is probably going to be blown out, too white. That's fine. This is what you're selling, not what's outside. Now, if what's outside here is mountains or the ocean or Lake Michigan or something that's clearly going to help with the home sale, you have options of taking pictures at different exposures. One's going to be dark, too dark in the house, but it's going to get a great exposure out here. And one's going to be bright. It's going to be perfect for the house, but be way too bright out here. And then you can merge the two together. Or you can actually do it with one photo. And I'll show you that in another class, in another section of this class. So, merging two indoor photos. If it's important to see what's outside, you can take two different shots and put them together in Photoshop. This link I'm also going to have in Blackboard directly so you can see it. And I'm not going to record it right now because it may then flag this recording of mine as copyright issues. So the link that I'm giving you is to the Digital Photography book, Volume 3. So the Kelby book that we have is the best of. He wrote 4 or 5 volumes before he pulled together the best of. So when I was using book 3, there were many helpful videos in here. And when you get to this link, when you click on here to watch this, if there are other videos that you want to watch, feel free to do that. The one that I want you to scroll down to and watch is this one, Home Interiors. And it's basically showing you how what's outside of this window is really too bright to see. And he's going to show you 2 different methods, one using just one photo, and the other using 2 different photos that you took at the same time in that situation. You intentionally took a bright photo and you intentionally took a dark photo. So please take the time and watch that. These Kelby videos are super helpful and I want you to watch them. I'm just not putting it in this recording. All right. Night scenes. We've talked about this a little bit in the past as well. Exposure is important. If you look at this image over here, it's definitely nighttime, but it's dusk. We can actually see different levels of darkness within the skyline here. Dark clouds, but still some brighter blue here. Then we have our midtones, and we see some detail within our midtones. And we have bright parts where we actually still see details on these brighter highlights. So how do you get this? Well, it's hard, but because it's a dark scene, you're going to be very tempted to aim at the brightest spot here, the lights. And if you do that and you lock in your exposure in this bright area, your camera's going to say, okay, this is important. I need to make sure that this can be seen, and it's going to plunge everything else into darkness. If you try to lock your exposure up in this dark area, it's going to say, okay, I need to make this brighter and brighter so I can see the detail, and in the process it's going to blow out the details down here. So focus just to the left or the right of the lights, somewhere in this mid zone. Take a shot, check your LCD screen. Now remember, you can't trust this completely, but if it looks way too dark or way too bright, you can use exposure compensation to bump up, you know, a third of a stop, 2/3 of a stop. You can also check the histogram, which we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, and look for any blown out highlights or problem areas. If you have a tripod or a cable release, that's going to help also, because it's going to take away any shake from your own hands. And then something fun can be to try different white balance settings, if your LCD is going to show you a preview of that. Not all of them do. But if you were to use one of them that makes things a little bit more blue or a little bit more yellow, you're going to get some cool effects. So the best time to shoot these typically is a half an hour past sunset to get a look like this. And finally, low light situations. If you have to shoot in low light without a tripod and you don't want to bump up your ISO to account for that low light, one thing you can do is to put your camera in burst mode or high-speed continuous mode, where it takes as many pictures as your camera can while you hold down the shutter button. So I think on mine I can take 11 per second, is as fast as my camera can take. And then also you need to have a high-speed SD card that can record them fast enough. If you have a slow SD card, even though your camera is capable of 11 shots per second, your SD card may not be able to record them that fast. Another time to use this burst mode is casual portraits. You can catch a lot of different emotions by just constantly clicking when people are posing for you. You know, one, they're maybe smiling fake, but 2 seconds later they've got a great smile, or they're laughing and it's very natural. This low light, chances are at least one of your shots is going to be in focus and looks good when you shoot in burst mode. All right, that is it for this first presentation.